Hey everyone. For all the bullshit talk and rhetoric aimed directly and against Donald Trump, and in some aspects I will say that I'm on your side to a certain degree, right? Because, well, hey, when you're not a dogmatist or an ideologue that believes in some full-on central planner that dictates and controls your lives, of course I'm going to be objective and open to different and varying opinions when it comes to that bullshit. But let's be honest here when we're talking about this aspect. This is in reflection to an article being produced today by CBC News under the World section with the headline of Ceasefire in southern Syria goes into effect. So you probably already heard today that, all it took was two men that are considered the strong men, right? And I guess they're also, by the leftists, the collectivists among us, considered the evil, the vile people, right? The leaders that are the worst of the worst. And then you're supposed to pay all your fucking respects to the collectivist types or the globalist types. But Trump or Putin, you got to hate these motherfuckers. Guess what? There's more evidence presented long before now, but Exhibit A. Ceasefire in southern Syria goes into effect. Calm prevailing since truce began, says Monitor Group. So, as you heard, Trump and Putin come to an agreement for a ceasefire arrangement to stop all this warring, all these factions fucking, fighting against each other and causing so much pain, death, devastation, and destruction in that country of Syria. Today, you're seeing that kind of divide and conquer has been greatly reduced and is seemingly going to cease to exist, at least for a short time frame. How is that not a good thing? How is not a good thing no matter if you're a Westerner or you're someone in the Middle East and supports your Syrian counterparts? How is peace not a good fucking thing? People not shooting against and killing each other for some ideological or political reason. How is that ceasing or the ending of that, or a temporary restrictions or refraining of that? How is that not a good thing? Anyone that would argue against that, like I say, you're talking about ideologues and bullshit propagandists for the state. And those are the people that you should never give any attention to, or should never lend them any credence or credibility. Let me tell you that. An open-ended ceasefire in southern Syria brokered by the United States, Russia, and Jordan came into effect on Sunday at noon. The agreement announced Thursday after a meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin is the first initiative by the Trump administration in collaboration with Russia and to bring stability to war-torn Syria. Like I say, how's that not a good fucking thing? You didn't see it happening under Obama, did you, right? He played politics, he played that fucking game, and he watched the divide and conquer, and he reveled in it, enjoyed and benefited from it in every stage along the way. Same with Bush, the fucking piece of shit before him. It took someone like Trump, and like I say, hey, I'm not a fucking Trump supporter, but like I say, just even with liberals or anything, if you do something right, I will recognize and acknowledge it, right? I'm not a dogmatist. I'm not an ideologue. It followed weeks of secretive talks in the Jordanian capital, Amman, to address the buildup of Iranian-backed forces in support of the Syrian government near the Jordanian and Israel borders. So Trump's just being smart. Like I say, he's a fucking much wiser. People talk about like he's just such an idiot, but he might, even where he lacks intellectually on his own, he's at least astute enough to seek out the information or intelligence of people that he sees that, hey, you seem to be much better at understand this stuff than I do, so I'll yield to your authority on the subject. Trump, at least, even as someone as a billionaire, right, that has been in a role of power and influence for a great substantial portion of his life, he still seems willing to accept outside influence when it's presented to him. So, hey, and like I say, I'm not a defender of politics, but this, like I say, even a clock can be right twice a day, and when it is, hey, stand up and own up to the fact that this is right. Forget about the actors involved. This is right. And they're showing a tweet. We negotiated a ceasefire in parts of Syria, which will save lives. Now it is time to move forward in working constructively with Russia. The three brokering nations did not specify mechanisms to monitor or enforce the truce. A resident and local opposition activist in Daraa, near the Jordanian border, reported calm in the opening minutes of the truce. There's still a lot of anxiety, said Ahmad al-Mazalmeh. We've entered the ceasefire, but there are no mechanisms to enforce it. That's what concerns people. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a British-based monitor, said calm was prevailing in the area since the truce began at noon Damascus time. 6 years of fighting and siege have devastated Daraa, one of the first cities to see large protests against President Bashar al-Assad in 2011. It remains contested by U.S.-backed rebels and Syrian government forces supported by Russia and Iran. Large swaths of the city have been reduced to rubble by government artillery and Russian air power. Okay, so this is when we're starting to get into the political aspect of and political narrative and political dialogue of the prevailing media outlet, which is the CBC, right? So, the predominant narrative of the left is it's all Bashar al-Assad. And like I say, I give that guy no fucking, like he's a central planner too. So, hey, you get no real olive branch offered by people like me. I don't really give a fuck. But, like I say, for the people's sake of Syria, not just for the people's sake of Syria, but of Canada and a lot of Western nations where these people are being forced to seek refuge, right? For all of our sakes, it is very important and of actual paramount importance that we start to recognize and realize that it is vitally more important to create a ceasefire and greatly reduce the kind of death, devastation, and destruction that is happening in those countries in the Middle East, and that will benefit them. And as a consequence, and another consequential result of that is we in the West will benefit too. So, right, whether it's in praise of, you don't have to praise Bashir, you don't have to praise anyone in the Middle East, but when there's a ceasefire where people are no longer actively engaged in death and destruction and violence towards each other, that's something that should be always celebrated as a benefit for humanity, as a benefit for peace, as a benefit for prosperity. The political activists from the left side of the perspective, or the political spectrum, or even those on the right, the warmongers among us, those are the people that are wrong ideologically, principally, and morally. Stand your position, stand your ground, and be principled, especially when you're talking about acts of war and violence and conflict. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.